Vanakkam, Namaste, or Sitaram, and welcome to another installment of that mini series Balidhaan. And in this episode, this video, we are going to start to go into the different Purans. And the first Puran that we go into is actually the um, the Matsya Puran. And we are going into book 2 of the Matsya Puran, and we are going to chapter 143, right? And in chapter 143, we see where there are a gathering of rishis asking Sutta to explain to them how the performance of sacrifice was propagated at the beginning of Treta. At the beginning of Treta, which is at the end of Satya Yuga and coming into the age of Treta Yuga. Right? And this is where Sutta explains to them that, Lord Indra, the partaker of the sacrificial offerings, I collected all the mantras and leading to the happiness in the world as in the next and started the performance of sacrifices. Right? He along with other devatas performed the Ashwamedha. Again, we are seeing that particular as that particular yajna, and which is also renowned as a sacrifice in itself. Right, and we'll go more in details as we go further down into more videos of Balidan, where we talk about that Ashma Veda. We see it here mentioned again, where the devas perform the Ashwamedha yajna, and after collecting all the sacrificial materials, many clever sacrificial priests came and took charge of their respective duties. Right, various oblations of ghee were offered in the fire in honor of of the devas. The devas were exceedingly pleased. Right, Brahmanas versed in the Samveda chanted hymns loudly, and other Brahmins were busy and went hither and there and performed their allotted rituals. Right? The animals for sacrifice was sprinkled with sacrificial mantras, and the devas invoked came for came and partake of them. Right? Partake of no correction, partake of their share of sacrificial offerings. Right? The devas, those who preside over the senses, and it is they that are partakers of the sacrifice. Right? So this is where we see where we see Balidan again making its right. We see Balidan again making its presence. We see in this particular Veda that it is being mentioned here, and it is actually being done in a ritual where Indra is right. Indra, who is Lord of the gods, Lord of the Devas, and so on, the Devas, he is there, right, to oversee and partake also, and other Devas who invoke. But out of transparency with it for this particular scripture, all right, this particular Puran, right, because I did say there are aspects where Balidan was amended, and I will go into further on that in other videos again when we talked about that aspect of Buddha and Balidan via the aspect of Buddha and Adi Shankara and so forth, and different, and the changing of certain say changing of, or more or less changing of certain things, meaning moving away from the aspect of animal sacrifice, and the introduction of other items I could use instead of doing the animal sacrifices, and I'll do that in later videos coming up. But this is where we see here where different Brahmins and sages who were involved in the ritual here was more or less attacked with compassion by the look upon some of the animals. They were also they more or less they approached Indra, and they questioned him if this is really dharma, that this cannot be dharma where you are killing animals and so forth, right? Further down into in this particular text and in this particular chapter, we say we see where a king was brought in who lived in the heavenly region, and he was brought in because he was very much knowledgeable, and he was brought in to weigh his opinions and his knowledge on should this be allowed or not. And in his response, he stated that the rituals were made for the sacrifices. They were built around the aspect of the sacrifices. And for that, an aspect, there were some sages that revolted against it and so forth. Didn't feel that that was the appropriate answer that they were looking for. And for that particular thing, he was more or less cast out of the heavenly region and sent down into lower regions of Patal. We also see where Lord Hari, Lord Vishnu, makes his appearance here and intervenes into this discussion, right? And this is where we see that turn, right? We see that turn from the balidhaan aspect of worship to where we go more or less more sattvic aspect. We go more sattvic. This is where, right, a lot of individuals would make claims and shout loudly on the top of their voice with this, that it is taboo, that is wrong, right? And I could understand them making that statement and making that, making that claim. But we must also take into consideration the different doctrines, the different Purans that will govern different sectors of Hinduism. This is when if you look on Vaishnava, right? Vaishnava worship, where Lord Hari is the primary deity. He's the king, he's the main deity here in their particular worship. He's the ultimate and so forth, compared to Shiva, which is Lord Shiva, and Shakti or Shakti, where the Devi is actually the ultimate god or goddesses according to their sector, right? When you look at the doctrines that governs their worship, that give rules and regulations, you will see that the Matsya Puran, right? You see the Matsya Puran will be part of Vaishnava. Also, Matsya, meaning half man, half fish, which was also an avatar of Lord Hari also. So you see these doctrines as part of their rules or regulation or part that governs how they do their worship. In Shakta or Shakti, they will acknowledge the Matsya Purana as a religious text, and they will acknowledge certain aspects of it, but it does not give rules and regulations to how they worship. They will use other texts, right? You will have the Kalika Puran, you will have the Devi Bhagavatam, the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam and so forth, that will give them rules and regulations and different tantras within Shakti or Shakta worship that gives them rules and procedures and rituals to how they do their worship. So this is one aspect of where, right, we see that turn, that twist from balidhaan, right, and the amendment to go towards sattvic worship, right? It still doesn't mean that Sakta worship didn't exist, but it is also it is a stepping stone. It is a path. It is part of the journey that we have to acknowledge also on that journey, to acknowledge and give reverence to what I am giving to where balidhaan is concerned. So we look at this. So that is why I brought this into play. And I say again, many people will use this to try to debunk the aspect of balidhaan, but yet you have to acknowledge the doctrines and where they have more governing power and where they have less. To what aspect of Hinduism they would have more weight and to where they will have less. And this one, Matsya Puran, has more weight within the Vaishnava worship than so much within the Shakta worship. So this is where we see now in the early parts of the ending of Satyug coming into Treta Yuga, it was done according to Vedic rituals. On the Vedic rituals again. And in many other videos coming, we will go into different aspects of Vedic rituals and so forth and see what was amended, what was changed, what tried its best to survive. So I hope this video is more as informative to you, and please join me for the other videos that is yet to come. Alright, Jai Sitaram, Namaste.